He wouldn't stop calling. While in my last year at university, I was trying to earn a little extra money and decided to post ads online for babysitting services in my local area. Most people with ads on there had a picture of themselves, and so did I. Logic being that parents would want to check out potential babysitters by appearance too. And most people put contact numbers on there as well, so I also did that, thinking it might give potential customers more points of contact than just messaging through the ad site. So, within about 45 minutes of posting the ad, I went downstairs to cook dinner. And then my phone began ringing in my bedroom, but I was tied up with hot pans on the stove, so I left it, slightly annoyed that I might have missed a potential customer. However, I heard my phone ringing again and again and again. I dashed up as soon as I could free myself from cooking and went to pick up the phone. When I picked it up, all I could hear was heavy breathing. So naturally, after I didn't get a response, I hung up. The phone rang again as soon as I put it down. I picked it up again, and eventually, a guy replied. He started off normal, and I figured that perhaps it had just been a bad line before. He first explained that he had 2 kids under 5, and then asked me if I thought I could handle them. Having experience with some pretty badly behaved kids in the past, I said yes. He then asked me if I stay overnight when babysitting. This put up a red flag in my mind, and I firmly said no. After this, he went silent again, and all I could hear was some heavy breathing. I asked if he was still there, and then suddenly he says, "Are you a virgin?" I hung up. The phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing for another hour non-stop. He had a withheld number, so I couldn't specifically block that number. But then I found the function to block withheld numbers on my phone. I did it, deleted my number from the ad site, and then proceeded to message every other person on there in my local area with a babysitting ad to warn them. Turns out, some of them had had similar experiences. I would have never fallen for the "do you stay overnight" part, but it made me shudder to think of teenagers or vulnerable adults falling for it and what might have happened to them. If he hadn't withheld his number, I would have reported him in an instant. I felt so unsafe and was jumping at shadows for the rest of the evening. The Angel. A few years ago, a mother and father decided they needed a break, so they wanted to head out for a night on the town. They called their most trusted babysitter. When the babysitter arrived, the 2 children were already fast asleep in bed, so the babysitter just got to sit around and make sure everything was okay with the children. Later that night, the babysitter got bored and went to watch TV, but she couldn't watch it downstairs because they didn't have cable down there. The parents didn't want the children watching too much garbage. So she called them and asked them if she could watch cable in the parents' bedroom. Of course, the parents said it was okay, but the babysitter had one final request. She asked if she could cover up the angel statue outside of the bedroom window with a blanket or a cloth. At the very least, close the blinds, because it made her nervous. The phone line went silent for a moment, and the father who was talking to the babysitter at that time said, "Take the children and get out of the house. We will call the police. We don't have an angel statue." The police found all 3 of the house occupants dead within 3 minutes of the call. No angel statue was ever found. Thump, thump, drag. One night, a 16-year-old girl was babysitting for 2 young boys. Their parents weren't due to come home until very late, so she let them stay up and watch some TV. One of the boys was flipping channels when he came to an emergency news bulletin. The reporter said that a crazed murderer had escaped from a nearby insane asylum and was on the run from local authorities. He was believed to be in the area and was armed with a hatchet. The police cautioned residents to lock their doors and windows because the man was extremely dangerous. The young boys began to panic, and the babysitter didn't want them to get upset, so she put them to bed early. As she tucked them in, they kept asking her if she had locked all the doors and windows. She assured them that she would lock everything. Then she went back downstairs and resumed watching television. Sometime later, one of the boys was awoken by a loud crash. He wasn't sure if it was his imagination, so he sat up in bed and listened intently. After a while, he began to hear weird sounds coming from downstairs. Drag. Thump, thump, drag. Thump, thump, drag. He wondered if he was just letting his imagination run away with him. Maybe it was just the sound of the babysitter watching television downstairs. Thump, thump, drag. Thump, thump, drag. The boy heard the sound again and woke his brother. Together, they listened at the door to the bedroom. Thump, thump, drag. Thump, thump, drag. The boys began to shake with fear, terrified. They pushed their beds up against the door and barricaded themselves inside their room. Thump, thump, drag. Thump, thump, drag. The sounds eventually stopped, but the boys were too afraid to leave the safety of their bedroom. For hours, they cowered in the room, with their beds jammed securely against the door. Later that night, when the boys' parents returned, they were shocked to find a gruesome scene. There was a trail of blood leading from the hallway all the way up the stairs. In a panic, the mother screamed out her sons' names. When the two boys heard their mother calling, they pulled back their beds and opened their bedroom door. Lying at the top of the stairs, in a pool of her own blood, was their babysitter. Her arms had been cut off at the elbows, and her legs had been cut off at the knees. She had used her bloody stumps to drag herself up the stairs, trying to warn them.